Today I'm going to be showing you how to make a Minecraft torch. Not just any Minecraft torch, this is a special Minecraft torch. Have a closer look and see what you think. This all started with this little bulb. It's one of these Chinese flickering light bulbs. As you can see, it's in there right now. I bought this as a mistake and I thought to myself, what can I do with it? I didn't want to throw it away. It's quite a nice little bulb, but it had the wrong fitting on it. And I didn't really want to send it back because, to be honest, you know, there was nothing wrong with it and the seller's not at fault. It was my own fault for just not figuring out that I needed a different kind of bayonet or screw fitting. I can't remember now which one it was. So I opened it up, I had a look and found to my amazement that it was actually running off 3.7 volts, which is stepped down using a little transformer inside. Which was fantastic really, because that opens the door of possibility up to all sorts of things, doesn't it? And I couldn't think of anything. I just couldn't think of anything to use it for. I thought Halloween lanterns and all sorts of other things. And then all of a sudden, my son came to me and said, "My Minecraft torch is broken. Can you fix it?" And I thought to myself, I looked at it, and I can fix it most probably, but you know, looking at it, it's very plasticky, it doesn't last long on battery, it's a little bit worse for wear, it's battered. I thought, what if I can actually build you a new Minecraft torch? And then I thought, what if we can both do it together and you can build some of it? So me and my son, we decided to build a Minecraft torch, but a really, really good one. All the files are online, so if you want to build one of these, you can just download the bits that you need and make it, follow along with the video. It's not really difficult. It can take a little bit of time to sort of do the tedious bits, but you know, like everything, it's part of the work. So if you're interested to find out how I made this, then carry on watching. And I hope you'll enjoy. Okay, so let's get started on this. The first thing we're going to do is use some marking up. So we're going to mark up this old plank of wood. It's a piece of pine, and it's just a normal plank from any garden centre. It's 2 centimetres deep, and I'm going to cut it into 4 centimetres by 29, or 23 actually. And this is what it's going to look like. So I'm going to put each piece and butt it against the next piece to form a square, and I'm going to leave one side where I can access and open it should I need to ever get into the internals again. The top part is a 4 centimetre notch, and it's where the lamp housing fits in. It's as simple as can be, really. Now I've finished the marking up, I'm going to start cutting this, and while I'm doing that, I can get the 3D printer going to get all those other parts on the go and ready for when we need them. So while I'm cutting that wood together, I'm going to screw it together just to see how it fits together, and then I'm going to hand it to somebody for some finishing work, which here we are. So it's nice to get things really flat and nice. It's nice to take the old shed kind of surface off things first, and that's what he's doing really here. It doesn't have to be super accurate. It's just to tidy things up. It's just to make sure it's roughly square and looks right. While he's doing that, I'm coming back in here and I'm going to prepare this for casting now that the 3D printer's finished. The other 3D printer's still going, but we're doing this one. As you can see, the master that I'm casting here is a 3D print again, which has been surface finished and spray painted to a high gloss finish, and this will give us the glass looking lamp that we'll have a light in there. It's a bit of a tedious job pouring this in. It can take a bit of time, but silicone, it's not very dangerous. It's quite safe. So now that he's finished with his sanding, he can do this. I'm going to look at the assembly and have a think about how this is all going to fit together and work. So I've got a little circuit board which is called a TP4056. Not that's going to be useful later. That's the power module for the actual bulb. But the TP46 that's sitting in that there is the main charging system for this lithium battery. It's a protection circuit and it's a charge regulator, which is essential really with lithium batteries, because these things tend to be a little bit dangerous sometimes. But in this case, it's just one battery with a regulated charge setup, so it's really very safe. And of course that's where the internal cavity is going to hold the lamp. So let's have a closer look at this TP4056 module. The battery is connected to the B plus and minus terminals. The output, which is to the switch on the torch and to the lamp, is connected to the outputs on the sides, and the inputs, well, you can use a USB for that. Right, so now that we know everything works and everything looks good, I'm going to start casting. I've added a few drops of pigment to this resin. It's epoxy resin, and I'm going to start tinting it so that we can have different various colours in that lamp. So mixing of the resin sometimes leads to a lot of bubbles. So what I'm going to do is use this little chamber that I've made. It's the 3D printed chamber for vacuuming cups of resin. As you can see, it's frothy, and we don't need that froth. That froth is going to form lots of bubbles when it's cast. So I'm just going to connect this to a little hand pump and suck out all the air, well, as much air as I can from this tiny little cavity. And the small cavity of that space there is something that's quite easy to suck out. As you can see, we're approaching quite a pressure in there already, and you'll see the difference once we disconnect that. Right, look at that, all the froth has gone. It's really nice, just a little bit of a swill, and it should be fine for pouring. Yeah, that looks really nice. I bet you're wondering what that gigantic syringe is used for. Well, it's actually used for measuring, but you could also use it as a vacuum pump to pump out the air from something like that chamber. And there we go, we've poured them. All we have to do now is wait for these things to dry, and it can take a long time to let epoxy dry, so I'm going to do some more and I have actually got one or two that have been done before, so that's what they look like when they've been demolded. While the epoxy is being dry, is being cured over there, I'm going to come to a different part of the table and do some soldering. Actually, I'm going to get my son to do some of this too. It's a good little skill to learn.
Yeah, well, don't be silly with it because it's really hot. Touch that to that and hold it there for a minute.
So the first thing we've got to do is take the wires off the switch that's already there. So it's a case of heating up the solder and pulling the wires off.
And do the same thing on this one.
Why are we breaking it?
Because we wanted to put different wires on it. Sometimes you might
A little bit of solder can help demold, desolder rather. Okay, so the circuit works, everything looks fine.
These wires don't go to the battery. The wires go to this box here, which is a charging box, and a protection circuit for the battery. So if too much is taken out of the battery, then the protection circuit will cut it off.
Hey, why is there a little block inside?
Right, a little snip here should turn this off. And that's where we're going to put the switch.
Now I need you to solder this for me. Now put it in there. Have you got any liquid metal on that?
Right, without burning my finger. Oh, nicely done. Nicely done.
Keep it on there.
That's a perfect job.
Okay, come away.
Do I switch it off?
Okay, now we're going to test to see if that switch works. And of course, it's I'm going to give my son the honours of doing that.
Right, Ethan, can you switch the switch on? Switch it on, see if the switch works.
Yeah, it works.
It does work. It's got different modes, isn't it? When you toggle that switch.
Right, so now all those things have been done and we're waiting for those other things to dry. We'll get to the veneering. As you can see, I've already started on this. Veneering is when you basically glue extremely thin slithers of wood onto another piece of wood. You often find tables and old furniture like that, designed like that. It's done for two reasons really. Sometimes it's done just for decoration, but sometimes it's actually done to disguise old furniture to make it look like it's actually real wood rather than perhaps chipboard or something like that. But it doesn't need to be done perfectly. It can be cut with the scissors. It can be it doesn't have to be really accurate, because we can actually sand the shape down afterwards, and we can actually add in bits to it just in case if we've made a mistake, in the form of a filler. And the wood filler is basically just sanded wood that's powdered and mixed with a bit of glue. So it's ideally we want to avoid doing that, but you know, it can be done. Ideally we need to put the grain of the wood so that it's all facing the same way. I'm going to leave this now. My son's going to do this instead, while I get on with a different job. Always use the weatherproof wood adhesive. It's PVA, and it's really good. I've watered it down a little bit here. I found the waterproof, the weatherproof PVA. It's better really, because if this ever got covered in juice or anything, then it would resist that temptation to come undone. It's a very tricky process, long process, this veneer work. It needs a lot of patience, and a slight move and you're sliding around all over the place. It's really difficult to get this looking square.
Do you know that square that you just picked up? Pick it up again.
But with perseverance you have some really nice effects with it.
And see if the square block is square.
It doesn't really take very long to dry either, especially if you water down the glue so that that glue can get into the pores of the wood,
Can you see it? So it's got a straight edge to it.
because you don't need very much.
Yeah. So we know that that's square. It's called a square.
So
Even though it's
to
not square.
check to see if
It's called a square.
the next square is going to be square, what you need to do is use an engineer square. Lots of squares, isn't there? While he's doing that, or while he's finishing that, I'm going to prepare the casting of the head.
Yeah, of course.
So this is going to be epoxy, and it's going to be placed into the into this mould. It's the main mould, and this thing is going to fit right inside to displace the resin, forming a cavity where the actual light fitting will sit. So what I'm going to do with all these pieces that we've been making up until now is basically set them into this mould. This is where it all comes together. So I'm mixing up a batch of clear epoxy. I'm not adding anything to it, I'm not tinting it in any way. Effectively it's going to be like glue. The glue that binds all these things together. So I'll speed it up a little bit here. And there will be a little bit of bubbles in this. I've taken a long time to mix this so that it's carefully mixed and minimised the amount of bubbles in there. Also, when I'm pouring this in, I'm pouring it in a way where it's such a thin stream that not a lot of bubbles will form, and then to rotate and agitate the mould later, you can further eliminate any bubbles. Right, so I've got to be careful with this part now, because if I drop that in there, I could make a very sticky mess. So I'm using scissors as a kind of tweezers to place this. It's not ideal, but it can become very sticky and messy, this part. That's why I'm wearing gloves. So it's these little pieces are slightly undersized, and the reason for that is so that if I need to move or adjust these pieces later, then it should be easy to do that. They basically dunk into the resin that's there and displace the resin, squeezing the resin over the surface of the actual parts. So it will give it a really nice gloss finish when it's demoulded. There will be some bubbles in there towards the top, but that's not going to be an issue because it's going to be hidden within that wooden part. As you can see, a lot of that wooden part has been glued together now. All the veneers are slowly forming. So I'm bringing this up to about halfway in there. I don't want to use too much resin, because once we have put all the little cubes and spacers into that, it will displace the resin, and inserting that cylinder into the mould will should actually displace the resin right up to the very top. It's a good way of doing this. There are other ways of doing it, but this seemed to be the easiest, quickest way. I suppose could have used coloured acetate or vinyl to to place that into the mould. We could have dyed the mould after, but this seems to be the way that would give the best quality. So I'm noticing tiny little bubbles have been caught underneath the lip on the underneath there, and I can't do a lot about it, but it's not going to be so much of a problem either. As you can see, it's in, and I shall have to wait now. This was glued earlier. As you can see, a lot of work has gone on in the meantime. We still need to sand it and finish it. And so we're going to put the head in there like that. And we're going to sand this bit down. We're just going to sand it and smooth it all out. It's looking good so far. The USB thing at the bottom, the USB port, as you can see there, it's ready to charge, and it should work. It should work as it is. Hopefully, I'm not going to fill it with resin. Okay, so we need to finish the head. So this is actually joining the lamp to the actual circuit that we made earlier. And once that's done, the actual resin is dried, and I've demoulded it. What do you think? Does that look nice? I think it looks nice. It's not perfect. There are little dips in it, there are little bubbles, but I expected this to begin with. But overall, I think it's a really nice effect, and I think it works. It works really well. And I think some of the imperfections actually scatter the light, help scatter the light, like little bubbles and perhaps you know, indentations and things. It's all helps to scatter that light in a different way. Yeah, I'm pleased with that. I think that's going really well. So it's just a case now of soldering it up and sticking it all together. This is a small, tiny little batch of epoxy resin that I've mixed up. I've put a tiny little bit of pigment in there just to tint it slightly. I'm going to use this like a kind of varnish. It's going to go. It's either going to be painted or it's going to be wiped with a cloth, and in this case I'm going to wipe it with a cloth because I want to work that resin right into that wood. I want to basically use this resin not only as a surface finish, but as a strength and hardness to the wood. I need it to penetrate that wood and really solidify and give it a really crisp, hard shell. Because this thing, it's going to be used as a toy, and it's going to encounter all kinds of things, probably juice and everything from carpet to dinner and all sorts of things. So it needs to be really, really tough, and that's why I'm not using varnish. But this is just as good. I mean, epoxy really does have a nice shine to it once it's left to dry and settle. I'll need probably about 3 or 4 coats of this, so I'll need to give it some time and really let all the layers build up. You can see the difference, the wet look and the dry sanded look. I don't know which one I prefer, to be honest, because I like both that kind of nice bare wood finish as well. I'm not drinking this, by the way. It looked like I was drinking it there, didn't it? Right. As you can see now, the surface finish is looking really good already. It's glossy and it's penetrating that wood. I have to be careful that it doesn't penetrate the wood through to the inside and stick the things that are inside. Like, this is why this side is loose and not connected at the moment, because I don't want this to be glued together. I need that part to be separate so that I can access it at a later stage if I need to. And it's ready now, so it's just drying here. I will probably put another 2 layers of this stuff on. As you can see, it looks okay. Looks very crisp, I think. You can probably notice the resin is very lumpy, but that's okay because we're going to sand the wood in between this. And there we are. It's all put together. It's all working, and it's fully charged, and it's ready to go. So there's going to be one happy little boy. And hopefully, over the next few weeks, I'm going to see how well it stands up to the beating of daily use. It's not really going to be something that's put on a shelf and forgotten. It's actually something that's going to be used every day, every night. It's going to be effectively a bedside lamp. So I'll keep you posted on things like that. If you like this video, hit the like button. If you've got anything that you can add to this, perhaps if you want to share some advice or perhaps tips and tricks on what we could have done or what things that we might have done differently, then let us know. That'll be great. And perhaps subscribe if you want to find out what else we might make in the future. So I'm going to leave you now with a few shots I took, and thanks for watching.